What's going on, guys? Bingo here. I'm with the Duel Factory for episode 28 of X-2 Drop, our weekly Yu-Gi-Oh podcast we do, talking about anything and everything in the game. This week's episode is just going to be a pretty generic statement saying, is this a good format? It's been a while since the last ban list. We've had a couple of product releases, some impactful tin promos, and the meta's pretty established, and it's just, is this a good format? What do we think about it? We're going to go over what we like about it, what we don't like about it, and basically if it is good, what we want to stick around, or if it's bad, what we want to see changed in the future. So we've gone to quite a few regionals this season so far. Two since the Megatins have been legal, and two before that, I believe, right?
I think it was just the one.
Okay. Yeah, it was just St. Louis. But so we've gotten to play quite a bit more events in a short time than we usually do. So we've gotten to see quite a bit of how it's developed. But just blanketly, Joe, what do you think of this format?
Can you smell what the Rock's cooking, basically?
Yeah, Nibiru's pretty good.
Yeah, but no, after playing it, I know we were all probably sick and tired of the Orcus memes, but I feel like it's a Orcus dominated format. Especially after today.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a little bit, but overall, do you like it? Do you not like it? Is it okay?
I think it's better than what we've been dealing with. Because we went from dealing with just a bunch of big oppressive decks where it's just hey, you're not going to get to play the game, but I am, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then we've kind of switched to where Orcus is probably the most represented and most dominant deck right now, but you're still able to play and you're still able to interact with your opponent, and the game's at a much slower pace is what I think is compared to what we have been playing. So I mean, I think it's all right for now.
Yeah, I think the most oppressive board Orcus puts up is Longirsu, Crescendo, Galatea, or Dingirsu, Longirsu, Winda, and Crescendo. I think that's the scariest board they put up.
So far, yeah.
But we still have Orcus, Salamangreat, Thunder, Pendulum, Sky Striker, basically everything we've been dealing with, plus Rogue. Rogue being True Draco, which never dies. Guru Control. There's quite a few Rogue decks, but overall, it's more or less the same. Dragon Link just got shit on. It's basically not a deck anymore. There's still Thunder Dragon Combo, and I would classify those oppressive decks you were just talking about. I'm going to set up a board and you can't break it as Rogue now, for the most part.
I could probably agree with that because I'm not gonna lie to you. I never thought I would say this especially after playing Combo Thunder for that long, but pure Thunder's the move, man. It really is. Especially now that your worst matchup, it just the combo version just has such a really hard time going against that deck going second anyway. So it's you just kind of have to play more control decks now.
Yeah, and you Orcus is a combo deck, but it's also a control deck. It's a really weird place. It can definitely OTK depending on a few things. It's a lot easier if they're playing Gizmek or if they don't get hand trapped at all. But Orcus it combos off, and then it never runs out of steam because you're shuffling back your banished cards. You have access to as long as you can banish cards, Orcus can grind like no other. Especially pre-ban list, Striker was just better. Right, with 3 roll. But now that you're 1 roll, 1 Kagari, if you don't open right, you're just going to lose. If they can just constantly answer what you set up, you're just going to lose. And Orcus, unlike Sky Striker, has a favorable Thunder Dragon matchup. And it's also a fucking engine that is getting put into everything.
So, Orcus is... Go ahead.
Before we go on, overall, I don't hate this format. I think it's enjoyable to play overall. But I'm just so sick of Orchest. And I honestly think that's what it comes down to. And I'm a striker player. Thunder Dragon is not my favorite matchup to play, but at least I get to try to play. It's not like my cards are getting negated constantly, like against Guard Dragon decks or Pendulum. Like I hate that that's as strong as it is, but I still get to play. But Orcus is just, it's so grindy and it's so hard to deal with if you don't draw, your side deck cards or like you just open broken. But that my biggest complaint about the format is just Orcust is too generic. Being played in Pendulum, being played in generic combo. It's just, it's too easy to use that engine. Fucking Cyber Dragon, a deck that has literally no synergy in theory with Orcust is
can play Orcust combo.
Is topping Cyber Dragon Orcust, like what is it, Ediception and his buddy?
Yep.
Like it shouldn't work, but it does, and that's the point where I think an engine needs to get checked. You saw it with Trickstar specifically for Orcust. You saw it with Sky Striker for fucking everything. But
you're 100% right. Like the Orcus archetype right now is like it's in a weird spot where it's like the jack of all trades, but it's not the king of any of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You have decent power, but not overbearing.
The deck can grind. It can kill. It can break boards. It can be splashing anything like that. That's the biggest thing. Like you're saying, it's a splashable in every single deck, and every single I'm even seeing just to kind of give you an idea. So you have the pure Orcus deck, which that's all I saw today personally when I played. And the last couple times I've played, I've just been like pure Orcus. And then, like you're saying, there's a deck that shouldn't have any synergy with it, with Cyber Dragon Orcus. And then you take it a step further where I've seen Dom and Jesse Cotton, and then playing a really weird Thunder Orcus Guard Dragon whatever deck, which it's like 43 cards. It plays 7 different engines. And it somehow manages to squeeze Orcus combo in with Gizmek Orochi. And then so on and so forth. So you have like 17 playable decks now because and Lunalight Orcus. That's apparently a thing. What John was not John, but Doug was telling me the other day. So that's a thing apparently too. So it's just like where I like an engine being splashable in every single deck. It's getting to the point where it's slightly ridiculous, but it's the fact that also it seems like that engine only loses to one specific card, and not every deck can play that specific card. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, a hard loses to Dimension Shifter, it shuts it off for a turn, and an unanswered Lancia shuts it off for a turn, and that's about the best you got.
That's what it seems like. Now, I know Doug was talking about playing System Down. I've seen a couple people bring it up because that card could be really, really good in a pinch. But like a lot of times, like I don't know how good that card's going to be because you still have to play through Crescendo Negate, and like if your opponent has any like 2 cents among them, they're not just going to burn their Crescendo Negate. So like that's another thing too.
Yeah, and then like the crazy thing about that deck is it seemingly has infinite resources, right? Because you're shuffling stuff back with Galatea, you're shuffling like whatever, if you're playing a very small Orcus engine, that can carry you for a turn or 2 or 3 if, it's a simplified game state. Like, you can just solely rely on that because of the way the cards interact with each other.
I tell you one thing that it kind of reminds me of that, which might bring up the fact that Orcus is kind of a problem, but it reminds me of a Zoo engine where it's a very, very small main deckable engine of like 7 to 10 cards, and then everything else is just extender or enabler to make your deck better. And that's like really, really scary because like you're saying, the requirements to actually play an Orcus engine. So if we just go bare bones and you're just mixing it in, the bare bones is 2 Nightmare. I think it's like 2 Nightmare. For the main deck, 2 Nightmare, 1 Horror, 1 Skeleton, and maybe Wand or Gizmek Orochi. So we'll go ahead
probably Crescendo.
And probably Crescendo. So six cards at a minimum for a small engine, and then your extra deck which I've seen a lot of them are switching to a long Gersu, and then if they're splashing the engine, to Galatea. So it's a super splashable engine.
If you feel like it, but yeah.
Exactly. Well, I mean, you're going to play that regardless. But it's a super splashable engine that doesn't take up a lot. And what it provides is interruptions on your opponent's turn with the field spell, if you're playing the field spell.
Or an Omni negate through Crescendo.
Exactly. Like, you have so many different directions it can do. Now, that also presents the question of what can you do to hit an engine like this?
I mean, the simplest answer, is it the right answer? I don't know, is like ban Mermaid.
See, now I was reading something about this, and there was another thing that I found interesting, whereas one, you can ban Mermaid, right? Yeah. And we think that solves the problem. But the thing with Mermaid is if you take away Mermaid, then what ends up happening, and I think a lot of people will start moving over to this engine, is they switch over to the warrior builds of it, which makes Isold, which gets
Armageddon
Knight, which sends your card anyway, and you're back at the same problem. One thing I saw that was interesting that someone said is instead of banning Mermaid, leave the Mermaid alone, even though it would future-proof formats, and let's banish the field spell. Or banish, but ban the field spell.
I don't do a lot of lists, or not a lot, but I have seen quite a few lists not playing the field spell in the main deck.
Just hear me out on this one, though.
Okay, I'm listening.
Because if you take away the field spell, especially, like, you'll see a lot less pure variants, right? The field spell, you take away the ability to long Gersu interrupt during your opponent's turn. You take away the ability to Den Gersu interrupt during your opponent's turn. You can't recycle any cards during your opponent's turn, and you can't just have multiple topologic interruptions in a turn. Because that's the big thing, like, topologic Bomber Dragon be able to resolve multiple times.
So, the way I would approach it is I don't want to kill the Orcus deck. I want to kill the engine, right?
Right.
So, I'd have to think about it a little bit more. And when you're talking about the Warrior Toolbox to Armageddon Knight to get to Nightmare or whatever, like, that's incorporating at least 4. You're going to play 5 equips, right?
Like, you're going to play it. You're going to have to play a minimum.
You have to play 5 equips, because if you draw 1 and you're only playing 4, then what the fuck? So you're playing 5 additional bricks, and just the deck is less consistent and more susceptible to hand traps. Because, like, pure Orcust, it's make Mermaid, and 9 out of 10 times they have fucking Eagle Booster to back the Mermaid. But I don't know. I'd have to think about it. I want to kill the engine. I want Pendulum not to be able to play the deck or play the engine so efficiently. I want Cyber Dragon not to be able to play the fucking engine.
If you want to kill the engine, just ban not ban, but put Galatea to 1.
Yeah, that's so painful.
Like that literally, like, I think that makes the engine unplayable.
It's like pure Orcust. I think that deck deserves to be a deck, right? It's not impossible to beat. It's not this insane thing. It's just when you add a Crescendo on top of a Vortex, a Zephyr Providence, and a Spheres, or whatever Thunder Dragon combo that I'm not really aware of.
I mean,
that's my thoughts on it.
I don't know. We can keep going on about the Orcust.
We've talked about Orcust, but as you guys can see in the pie chart, it's a just massive representation. I don't think it is the high skill cap deck in the format by any means, but that doesn't mean anything if you're going for your invite, or if you just want the highest chance to win at, I do think it's slightly forgiving for misplays. But anyways, we've spent 10-15 minutes talking about Orcust. You're playing Pure Thunder right now. And how do you feel that's working?
Like I said earlier in the podcast, I think Pure Thunder is right now the best decision to play. Because I think it has the best chance to play against an Orcus deck versus the combo version. Uh, but one of the big things, like the reason to play Pure Thunder right now, is one of the 10 promos that honestly is like being overshadowed by Nibiru and Dark Ruler No More is Dimension Shifter, which we were talking about earlier. But it's like that it's just like beyond insane because you just put your opponent and yourself under Macrocosmos for your turn and their turn. So it's a full swing of turns. And then all your cards can activate under Macrocosmos, which puts you at advantage already when a lot of your opponent's advantage just goes away. Like, if you Dimension Shifter an Orcus player, like, it just ends their turn.
Yeah, if you like, the problem with D-Shifter was just it didn't fit in any of the meta strategies, right? Like, the card is broken against Orcus, Sky Striker, to an extent Pendulum, Salamangreat. It straight skips their turn, and there's just nothing like before Pure Thunder picked it up in the main. I saw it in Magical Musketeers, and that was it.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's one of those cards that like just took like the ceiling of Pure Thunder and making its like Orcus matchup like unbearable to playable. And that's like a huge step in the right direction for that specific strategy. And then another thing I noticed too, because I played a mirror match, finally got to play a pure mirror match, not play like against a combo version. People just forget how to play around Titan. Like, my opponent's like sitting there and like I'm looking at the hand that he Warlord crack my board and win the game. But like he just didn't realize that like my Titan activates when his in-hand thunder effects activate. So I popped like 6 cards in one turn. Like, the card's just insane. You're just gonna get free advantage. And it's like you can also play cards like Dynamiscus. You get to play Allure of Darkness again, which is insane because it's like Sacred Sword of 7 stars, but better. Like
the toolbox that Pure Thunder has access to, I think, is just extremely well positioned. Being able to play cards like D-Shifter, Dynamicious, like we just mentioned, and then fucking Eradicator, Epidemic Virus.
It's the best deck to play.
Imperial Order. It has, I think, this probably the strongest post side out of any deck of the format. But like obviously, any deck that sides in Lancey against Orcus, like it's gonna feel like you have a strong side. But the versatility of Thunder post game 1, I think is extremely high, especially if you win the first game and you have 2 opportunities to sideboard. It's like you should not be losing at any point.
It's one of those things like you have like an okay game 1 almost deck, and then like your games 2 and 3 is where, like you were saying, it's really good post side. Like it's really hard to lose when you like, especially when you side like this pure gas, like, because that's what the deck has the ability to do.
And if let's say you semi brick, right? And honestly, the only thing you can do is activate Dimensional Shifter and set up 1 Colossus, like worst case scenario, right? Like that will be enough.
Like they're under macro and they're under mistake. Like you're just like, it's really hard to play around that.
All right, so Thunder, I think, should pick up in popularity. Will it? Probably not, because it's not the most flashy deck. And honestly, I just feel like that's what the TCG likes. It's just like simple combos like Orcus and Salamangreat. That's why you saw before this format, Salamangreat was just 55% of entry into tournaments and shit.
Exactly.
So we'll jump back to Sky Striker. Again, I don't think it is the best deck to play the format. The only reason I'm playing it is because I'm comfortable with it. You straight lose to so many cards in the format that are relevant in the side deck. And it just feels so bad. Like if you get anti-spelled against an Orcus player and you don't have an answer to it, yeah, technically you can still play next turn, but you probably won't have a next turn. You get EEV'd, you're fucking multi-roll gets Dynamicious, you get Dimension Shifter. Like, there's just so many hard counters, and then people are always playing generic, at least 3 generic, just blowout cards on the side, like Twin Twisters or Evenly, and most of the time you don't have answers for those.
I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I think you and the entire Sky Striker community are the bravest individuals of the world for still playing that deck after the format.
Yeah, I would say it is just right now, it is a very well represented rogue deck that high skill players continue to pilot because they've been playing it for a year and a half or off and on for a year and a half. And it's just a good deck that people just don't want to let go. But I'm still going to play it because I don't want to play Thunder, Orcish, Salad, or Pendulum. So, and then we have Pendulum.
The one deck that plays through it plays through Nibiru with no problem. So like,
yeah, and that is the biggest problem. I played against a 60 card Pendulum today, and it was just fucking all gas all the time, and he just opened it perfectly. But it is I think the last remaining meta contender for combo, to be honest. And I'm talking like break my board combo.
I mean, yeah. I mean, that's what it comes down to. I mean, like, but you have a whole toolbox to do it. And, like, one of the cool things is, like, you can go into Electromite very easily without using your 5 summons, pseudo-search Jackal King, and make it live before you do anything. And, like...
Yes.
So now you're just ending on, like... I was watching Pendulum players play against Combo Thunder earlier, which the Combo Thunder kid I saw playing was he was the kid from Yeti that made it to Dragon Duels Worlds this year, and like his board was insane. Like he got Nibiru'd and like still ended on like full combo, but that's because his opponent didn't know what he was doing. But I mean, he still ended on like Vortex, Seal, Dawn Dragster, and like a bunch of other cards because like he just had raw advantage because it's Pendulum.
Yeah, and if you can't answer it, if you're going second and you don't have at least one form of interruption, there's a 90% chance you're just fucking dead.
Oh, 100%. 100% death.
Because they will have 3 to 4 negations and a bounce every time.
Or they just make the fucking bow.
Yeah, and like you were saying, it is the reason it is the last combo deck relevant in the meta is because it can set up a monster negation prior to 5 summons via Jackal King, and you should not side Nibiru in against a Pendulum player.
That's like the one,
especially a traditional like 40, 45 card list. Like I sided Nibiru in against a 60 card list because it was like an 8% chance he opens Spell Power Mastery or Servant. So I just took the chance, but he had fucking set rotation. I didn't draw Nibiru anyway.
Easy.
But Pendulum will always have this problem that it will never, ever, ever be the best deck of the format.
Not since Pepe.
No, and there are just too many answers, too many blowout cards for Pendulum to be the best deck. Now, I do think it will stay at 3 to 5, like on an extremely good day 5 for top cut representation, like 3 to 5 players. But I don't think it will get past that. It's a high skill cap deck. It's not the easiest to play, assuming you don't full combo, because you're not going to full combo every time.
No, not every time, but I mean, like, it's just one of those decks, like, every single card you draw, like, all Pendulum together. They just have this, like, weird thing. Even some of the Clifford cards you can put in the engine. But, like, every single card goes together, even though it wasn't meant to go together, and, like, you can just, like, any 2 Pendulums make Electromite, and you... So it's like...
Yeah, and then the last deck is Salamangreat, which... I'm a little surprised that I didn't shift to this because personally I thought it was one of the best decks that could play the new promos. but that was looking at it as as the guy playing it. It also hard loses to Nibiru because you have to. It's a control deck, but you have to summon a lot, and you don't have a way to play around it. And also your recovery, if you don't get to resolve Mirage Stalio because that's your 5th summon, then you're just screwed.
Yeah, like if you get Nibiru, it's tough, but like games 2 and 3, you kind of have to change how you're playing. Like, for example, a lot of times, like, and like, here's the problem is like you have to be like passive, and like you kind of have to hold on to your Gazelle and be forced to like go off the following turn, like if you draw cards like Strike or whatnot, and that puts you in a really like a very very like poor position because like in modern day Yu-Gi-Oh, you can't afford to give your opponent like a turn to play unless like you have like the absolute gas in hand. So it's like to play around decks like that, like you just have to play super awkwardly. But like, I mean, if that's what you gotta do, that's what you gotta do, right?
Yeah. So here's my thoughts on Salamangreat is unlike Sky Striker, which has an extremely dedicated, high skill player base that you just continuously see them not dropping the deck. Salamangreat took those 2 hits and everybody dropped it like it was fucking dead, right? So I'm not saying there's not dedicated Salamangreat players. I'm just saying it will not have the representation from the player base that counts. There will be top cut slots for Salamangreat, but people are just going to opt to play the better deck, being Orcust or Thunder Dragon or something. They're just not going to dedicate because you can have awkward hands with Salamangreat. You can just not have a choice and play into certain hand traps.
Yeah, I could agree with that. Like you can definitely get put. But I will give the deck credit for one thing: it gets to play every single game.
Yep.
So
and maybe there'll be some innovations. Cybers is constantly getting support, and in theory, the cards are crazy, but it just always feels like they're missing that one thing. And then you think you get it with Signet Mining, and it's just they're just missing that one thing. Like maybe the Ignister support will be generic enough for Salamangreat to incorporate it. Who knows?
There's always that chance.
But
there's always that chance.
Can we take 30 seconds to bitch about True Draco, please?
I mean, the deck never dies. It's still really gay. It's like the best standalone monster. It can play every floodgate effectively. You have to wear a traffic cone to play it. You probably have to give up hygiene. Your last name probably has to have an S. And you probably have to be very sauceless at the game to play it. So there's that.
Yeah, you just have to be the player that doesn't get satisfaction from playing the game. You just get satisfaction from ruining your opponent's time. Whether or not you win or lose, you just want to see the frustration when you flip over floodgate after floodgate after floodgate, chain Ignis.
Like, honestly, it would not hurt my feelings at all. It would be scary, but I would love to see Dragonic Diagram go to 0 in the next format just so we don't have to see the fucking deck anymore. Some
Team Sam's going to post the best True Draco deck of the format, and it's going to be 3 Ignis, 3 Maiden, 3 of the fucking little guy that floats into another guy, and he's going to be like, this is the best way to play True Draco.
He's also going to play Planet Pathfinder for a field spell that doesn't exist anymore. Fucking hate that. Just let it. It's just annoying to play against. Like, that's why I switched back over to pure. Great. Getting bodied by True Dracos. I'm like, screw it. I'm going to summon just a gigantic lizard made of thunder, and you're not going to get to play, and neither am I. Let's do this.
All right, guys. We got about 30 seconds to a minute left. Joe, closing comments, thoughts, concerns, bitches, modes, complaints.
Orcus is the move. Pure Thunder is great, but it probably sucks. And, Douglas French just has, no sauce.
Piccolo, you have no sauce. Hey. That's about how it goes. So, guys, if you have enjoyed this podcast, please remember to check us out every Monday at 8 a.m. on iTunes or Google Play. 10 a.m. on YouTube on my channel, and basically whenever I get home to upload it to Joe's channel. That would be youtube.com/bingohd and youtube.com/the Duel Factory. Upload regional deck profiles if we ever actually get together and do any more videos that we both have the time to, but we just would rather go to sleep.
I do like to sleep.
Yeah. So again, guys, if you've enjoyed, I'll see you next week.
Okay, bye.